In terms of size, how big was that business when you bought it?
Tiny. When I got involved and started going, we did $15,000 for the month. I think we're gonna do right around 650, 700,000 this month. We're about an 8 million run rate now.
8 million in 1 year is the gurus that you always hear about and you never believe.
Yeah.
Where are you in the cycle? What's your next step?
I want to play where I can win. And the dream of all dreams for me would be able to have a business that I can do with my kids and to have an excuse to spend time with my kids.
Oh, wow. Welcome back to JackQuisitions. I am super pumped today. We have Dustin Marx from Mother here. Dustin, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. I feel like I've listened to you for hours on end, Jack, and it's fun to be able to have the opportunity to be on this podcast as well.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Yeah, it's always fun, the people who've actually listened and like you get to watch them through their journey. And so now your journey's brought you here. We were talking offline. On top of that, you've got to be on podcast with Roger Wakefield, that's super cool. Like that's a defining moment. I feel like Jack, I'm putting my hand really low, and then Roger Wakefield really high. So like, thanks for coming on and after Roger and taking your time with little old me.
No, it's a real pleasure, and candidly, a big part of the success that we've had as a company has been the wonderful content that you and John have put out, both on owned and operated, and then I've been listening in on the JackQuisitions and a variety of the episodes there, and so if there's a way that I can give back to others, I feel like I've gained so much, and really a lot of gratitude for what you guys have put together thus far.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much again. So here, rather than Owned and Operated, for everyone listening who doesn't know, Owned and Operated is our sister podcast that focuses on after you make your first acquisition, how to run the business. And so in the same kind of theme, Dustin, walk me through the first acquisition. How did you find it? What made you pull the trigger? Maybe even go into a little bit about your history. Is this your first acquisition? Like what's your background?
Are you tired of paying money on leads that don't convert? With PaperCall.io, you only pay for a lead when your phone rings. No junk leads, no bots, and no guesswork. Just real calls from real customers. PaperCall.io helped our company achieve a 5 times ROI in just 60 days. If you're ready for marketing that actually delivers, head to PaperCall.io and book a free demo today. That's PaperCall.io. Get more calls, not excuses. Click the link in the description to get started.
Yeah, so I've never done an acquisition before, and as I kind of share some of the story, I'm sure it's not that compelling, and you'll see kind of how simpleton I am. But a little bit about myself. So I about a decade ago, I founded a technology company, and we connected tradespeople with companies that had anywhere from 100 to 100,000 rental properties. And so we were kind of like a tech-enabled general contractor, raised venture capital and some private equity, and then exited about a year and a half ago. And had never really gotten into the residential space, the consumer space. And so I've been learning quite a bit, but was really intrigued. And so one of the things that I did was because I'm not a plumber, even though Mother is, modern plumbing, we're a plumbing company, I wanted to go who knows and who's best in class. And so that's actually what led me to Roger Wakefield. So I started YouTubing and looking online and watching different podcasts. And he had this really phenomenal plumber who had built out the plumbing division for a large home services company in the DFW Metroplex. And I was really taken with that. And so I reached out to that plumber, and I was just like, I got this idea. I want to hear your story, and I'm just looking for some wisdom on where to go. And he was super kind. His name's David. And so sat down with David and, gave me, a lot of insights and perspective and wisdom. And one of the things I shared, I'm like, I'm not a plumber, but to be a plumbing company in Texas, I needed an RMP. And so who do you know? And he goes, there was this one person who had worked for me for a while. He ended up leaving, starting his own business. And, I think you should talk to him. And that got me connected to kind of the business that I ended up going and acquiring as well. So it was really through a podcast is how I got there.
That's a long road through multiple people. So was Mother the friend of David's? Was he the original business owner of Mother, and was it called Mother?
So the name of the company was SND Plumbing. And so this person, his name is Steven. Yeah, he works with me, and he's now one of the owners of the company. What I found in this category is you have people who are just incredibly thoughtful and technically very wise, but maybe they don't have some of the entrepreneurial background. And so they go out and, you kind of have this like sea of sameness, right? Where it's like your last name and then the company name, right? And that's quite common in this category. And so it was S&D Plumbing, which had meaning for him. And, a tremendous plumber, great reviews, like all of those wonderful things. But some of the aspects on operating the business just didn't have as much exposure. And so kind of the litany of mistakes a lot of people make, right? Like, I'm going to provide the best possible service at the lowest possible price, and in theory, that sounds really like quite kind. But in operating a business, it makes it very difficult to run a successful business. And so he and I sat down with that introduction, and what we thought was going to be, a half hour, 45-minute lunch. We ended up spending about 4 hours just talking about kind of his philosophies and what I was wanting to do as well.
I mean, you're super humble about the way that started, but really, like, that's our recommendation when somebody new gets into industry. Is that's one of the best ways to become the owner, right? It's not like, hey, I'm going into this new geo with no experience and I'm just going to buy this company and hope I find and place an operator and go. It's especially now with the new SBA laws, like, that's the perfect method. It's, hey, I went out, I researched what I wanted to do, I listened to the podcast, I reached out to the people on the podcast, not necessarily the podcaster, who ironically you end up, being on his podcast later on. But I reached out to his hosts and his guests and get a hold of them locally. And then they refer you to someone else who's starting a business. And then you're able to partner/buy that business with somebody who has the technical experience, whereas you have the entrepreneurial, the business aspect experience. And so talking about that acquisition a little bit, like, obviously I understand the sensitivity between, the costs and everything, but in terms of size, how big was that business when you bought it?
Tiny. So this is like so just a little context, right? I think one of the things that I value that you talk about is like, where are your strengths and what are places that you can win? So I've never acquired a company before, and I don't know how, and even this one, I don't think it was like that, amazing of it. I only know how to build a company. And so this really was an acquisition to hire, an acqui-hire. That's really what I was doing. Is he was the right person that I felt we could do something really special with, and I just needed to come up with a way that would be compelling for him to want to do this together. And so with that, just to kind of give context, the month before the business, when I got involved and started going, did $15,000 for the month. So when I'm saying tiny, teeny tiny,
it's like him and
one employee,
him and a helper. Yeah.
We had maybe one plumber.
Okay.
So,
wow.
but that's the only way I know how to do a business. So, whereas others have superpowers to start in a different moment in time, I just am inexperienced and unskilled in that manner.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the right step for somebody who doesn't have the experience, because you could pull a me instead. I'm much like, I like your way a lot better than learning the hard way like I did. It's go out and buy a business with a bunch of debt and then end up being the only person there. So like, if you could do it the other way, try to focus that way. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Do what you are good at, what you know how to do, double down, leverage that. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And so you started off at that small 1 to 2 man shop. And then now it's been a year and a half, you said, or a little bit less than a year?
Yeah. So that was August of 24. So,
Okay.
we're about 14, 15 months from that point in time.
And where are you now?
So we've been fortunate, we've been able to have some good people, and there were certain
Great way to
things that I
start.
didn't realize at the time. Like he had, 185 reviews, and there's a 5-star rating, right? So there's like some of these intangible assets that I
Yeah.
was unclear about, and just to give some color, did an asset purchase, and went down that path. But today, we're probably total employees. We're in the kind of low to mid 20s, I think like 23, 24. Just from a revenue perspective, I think we're going to do right around 650, 700,000 this month in revenue. So we're about an 8 million run rate now. So
See, humble. No, 8 million in 1 year is the gurus that you never hear about, or that you always hear about and you never believe. That's absolutely wild. And God, I have so many questions. Slow down, Jack. So 15K a month to 6 to 700K a month. When you're saying 20 employees, you don't mean 20 technicians. You mean like CSRs and back of house and accounting and things like that. Correct?
yep. Correct. So we at this point we've got 10 full-time plumbers. I have 2 additional plumbers who are kind of operationally, supporting the business, and then we have 3 apprentices. So, but that's our current state.
And all residential, or is there new construction exposure? What does that look like from a breakdown?
Yeah. So again, thankful for your guys' podcast, and then also I ended up joining Nexstar about 4 or 5 months ago as well, so it's been
Yeah, awesome.
helpful. But we have done, I think, like zero commercial, zero new construction. It's residential
Humble,
service.
isn't it?
We did like maybe 2 or 3 remodels like early on, and we're like, we're not doing those anymore. So that's been it. It's just really residential service.
So what I'm taking away from this podcast here is I'm going to go to my plumbing division manager and say, hey, I know you did 1.2 your first year, pretty good. Next year, it's not 3 million goal, it's 8 million. That's what you're telling me. That's what I should be shooting for.
But yeah, and to clarify, that's our run rate, right? I mean, I think we'll only finish at about 5 million this year. So, like, we started the year much lower.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that really is an ode to doing what you do best, which, I mean, you said from the beginning is you know how to build businesses. And so a few questions based on like really early days, pre-purchase, kind of surrounding that initial kind of conversation is where did you come up with the name? Because the name is definitely unique. I mean, you have Call Dad, which makes sense, right? Like that from a logical standpoint. But Mother definitely stands out because I know your website's called Mother, but like the branding is just it's interesting. It's an interesting choice. What drove that?
Yeah, I think you know there's a lot of things. So one is attaching myself to really smart people, and so I was real fortunate to have go through kind of a branding exercise. In my prior company, I'd also gone through a branding exercise, and so I really valued distribution from the outset of starting this business. And so for me, you kind of have this sea of sameness, right? Where
Yeah.
it's just so common everywhere else. And so different is different, and it makes a big difference. And so, wanted to have something, one, that I could own, that, it's trademarked, kind of go down that path, but also that doesn't have a position in someone's mind already.
Okay.
And then also something that quickly for us kind of emphasize some of our values, right? So kind of mother denotes care and empathy, and then the other aspect for us is kind of like the double entendre of like a mother of like the best of, it's the elite. And so those were kind of the components and characteristics that went into it, and also a domain that we could actually purchase. And so all of that came together for Mother and our tagline, Modern Plumbing, as well. And so it's been fun. One of the things that I aspire to have is I want to have more women I think that would be one of the greatest, back to being different, of having like a lot of female plumbers. There's not as many of them, but my understanding is I think you have a couple of, on the HVAC side, some women as well who,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a game changer. And so that's something that we're aspiring to incorporate and have more, as well.
So yeah, really interesting. I mean, we came to the same conclusion early on from a branding perspective because my background was in um, one of the businesses that failed miserably was consumer packaging goods in the wine industry, which is a sea of sameness. It was what we came up with as well, and we didn't fail because the product didn't sell. It was another issue. Branding was the key though that ended up driving the bust. And so, how late or early was that finished by? Just so, because what I'm trying to draw the conclusion or trying to draw the listeners to here is how important some of these things are early on versus, like what should you be focusing on, what should you not. And so it was this like month 3, month 4 after the acquisition, or was this like, hey, month 1, we know that SND is not going to be the name?
Yeah.
Even the
So
conversation, right? Because you have to have the conversation with the owner who you're partnering with that like, hey, we're killing your 185 uh, Google review brand. Like that's a conversation that happens a lot in acquisitions is your legacy brand is going to the graveyard. We need something that is different. And unfortunately, your name doesn't fit that role.
yeah, and the name was meaningful for him, right? But the name did not hold a position. And so to your point, I had already kind of, in advance of acquiring this, I had already thought about, here's the business I want to build. And so I had some clarity about that. It was more, how am I going to get to be able to play the game? And in this case, I was very fortunate to come across someone who's amazing. But from the outset, everything we did from the first day was just to instrument the business, right? What's our technology stack going to be? Let's instrument it that way. So literally, we had signed up. Maybe this is kind of an insight into kind of some of my nature, but I had already signed up with ServiceTitan prior to even acquiring the business because I just knew we were doing that, right? But I wanted to instrument the business. ServiceTitan, already we were going down the path on branding. All of that was in motion from the first day, and so it took us. We got started in August. We didn't have the brand done, website done, till like January. So it took a little bit of time to get there.
But that's not a bad turnaround considering the speed at which you're building. It would be much harder to rebrand now than it would have been, day one. So it's interesting that you say that you were working on this prior, because I think that it sounds like a lot of the items that you were working on that ended up coming to fruition in your business were already in motion even before you've actually closed on the deal itself. Does that sound or ring true to you? Is this something that you felt like you were entrenched in prior to even
Yep.
taking step in the business?
Yeah, I had already had that, and then it kind of just uh, got enhanced with the person, right? So back to like mission, vision, values, all of that, kind of putting in that literally within our first couple of weeks. Some of that is soliciting from him and other people as far as like, what are our values? What are we going to stand for? What won't we stand for? Right? And kind of operating with that intentionality. But that really, I think, has been helpful for us because it clarified a lot of like, who are we going to bring onto the team? And so we've been fortunate that we haven't had very much turnover and been able to add people who, they're phenomenal. I mean, the big reason why we've grown so well is nothing with me because I don't know plumbing. It's our team. We have amazing people.
And with that being said, a lot of people fail with what you've done. They've tried to find the individual that fits and works well in the business. What was the either there's two parts to this question is what was the secret sauce that you knew that he was the right fit? What shone through to you early on in those discussions that you were like, yes, this is the guy? What was that moment? And then second is how did then you nurture that relationship? And of course, I don't want to talk about his salary or his equity or whatever you have going on, but just on a framework, like how do you encourage a individual that you've located as being that guy, and then how do you manage that relationship to make him so that he or she wants to work with you and grow this?
Are you tired of chasing reviews and watching competitors outrank you on Google? Well, Big Reputation has your back. They're an AI-powered review and SEO platform built just for home service businesses. With automated review generation, AI keyword-rich responses, and heat map local search tracking, you will finally get the visibility and reputation that you deserve. Plus, they integrate with all major CRMs that you already use. The best part? The setup is free and your first month is on the house. Book your demo in the description below.
Yeah. So a lot of trial and error. So I guess to answer some of the first part, his perspective on how we should treat employees and how we should treat customers aligned with my values. And so that was probably the most compelling aspect, is just he's a good human and a good person. And is a lot of similar values, right? Is always iteratively trying to get better and trying to grow. In advance, one of the other aspects is if you go to whoever is best in class for whatever you view, their kind of circle of influence, you're going to end up having high caliber people. So because of how I started this entire process, I was able to get connected with someone who was a domain expert, and then his skill set were my weaknesses. And so that was something that was really apparent. And I've got a lot of weaknesses. And so having somebody who can offset those was really helpful.
So I'm gonna push on you a little bit here. So somebody who aligns with your values doesn't and it does good at things that you're not good at, and vice versa, doesn't necessarily make a good partnership though, right? Like there's a lot of intangibles that come into place. For example, my personal example is I was working with a gentleman who, very good person, friends to this day. We run into a lot of people throughout our careers doing that kind of stuff, technicians, people, et cetera, et cetera. But there was an issue around pricing, right? This individual doesn't want to price things because they don't believe that the price point is fair on this. And this is a super specific example to try to bring home a larger point here. But I know that it needs to be at this price because that's where the margin makes sense, and that's how we drive. That's the market, et cetera, et cetera. So good. He's a good person. We like each other. He's good where I'm bad. I'm good where he's bad, which is the business side, saying, hey, like, we need to price this at X. It's market, and that's what moves the needle. So how do you deal with those intangibles? Like, and maybe the answer is you just have to pull the trigger and hope that they don't come to fruition. I don't know, but was there anything when you're dealing with kind of those intricacies of the individual where you're like, okay, he's also good person, but also aligns on my willingness to grow and want to grow a big business? Because a lot of the small guys don't necessarily want to grow, $50 million corporations either.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things there. One is mutual respect, right? And understanding where somebody else, have a lot of knowledge. So kind of to your illustrative example, had that person had the same respect for your wisdom, they would have been more probably deferred to you of saying, okay, here, it makes sense on the pricing. Now, just a couple of like very specifics is I did acquire the business in total, and I was very clear from the outset that, hey, we're going to do this for 6 months because, yes, there's this honeymoon, but I want to see how we operate and work together. And if it works well, then I want you as an owner with us. But the first 6 months, I want to see what you can do, what I can do, how we can do as well. So I put some of those pieces in place on the chance where maybe, my time with him, would come out to be something different than what I anticipated.
And it
So
sounds like then on the other end as well, you're recommending, like, there was at least at some point a discussion early on the pathway to ownership. So mutual ownership in some percentage.
yeah, for sure. Like I wanted him, I want him thinking big about the business, but more importantly, I want him to think holistically about the business, and I want incentives to be aligned. So there's like a couple of things. If I can just get a couple of things right and just repeat those, I know that the business is going to have success. And one of those is, how can I just make sure incentives are aligned? And if I have that in place, we can do a lot of still things not perfect, but I know everyone will typically operate in the same manner.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's where I was pushing is like, hey, I think that there's some part here around incentives, making sure that, you guys are aligned in more ways than just you like each other and that you're good where they're not. That makes a lot more sense. I get that. And so now that you guys are doing well, you're a year, 14 months in, obviously huge amounts of growth. Congrats. I mean, that's an ode to you, doing an amazing job. And for people who don't own businesses yet, that's incredible growth. Like he's doing it absolutely fantastic. But at some point, every owner and operator gets to a point where they have to decide on, hey, I'm going to double down on what we're doing, going to 100 million, going to 50 million, going to some level of scale, or start growing through acquisitions in different locations. Where are you in the cycle? What's your next step?
Yeah. So one, I want to stay in business. So I think that's probably the most
Key.
important,
There's a big
right?
key there.
Um, so back to I want to play where I can win, and I'm not skilled on the acquisition side. Like I hear on some of these conversations, you guys just rattle off a bunch of insights, and so I'm trying to get smarter, and that may be a part of the path for growth. But that's just not something that I'm as competent in at this juncture. So, for me, I'm like the dream of all dreams for me would be able to have a business that I can do with my kids and to have an excuse to spend time with my kids. And so I'm wanting something that I'm going to have for multi decades. And I'm wanting something that's going to endure and that I can pass down to them, and hopefully they'll want to hang out with dad. Um, so, um, but I want a lot of people to be successful on that journey for us, and made a lot of mistakes from my past, experiences. And so, like, I want to promote from within. And so, if my people aren't ready, that means we just can't grow as fast, and that's okay, right? I don't have to hit a certain number by a certain period of time for me to feel successful. I want to have it where people are there. And so, one of the things for me was I want a lot of people to build wealth. Like I'm a huge capitalist. I believe in entrepreneurship. I think so many good things in the world come from entrepreneurs and a lot of innovation, and it's incredibly difficult. And so I want to cultivate an environment where we not only, in our case, are doing plumbing, but we really teach people how to become great entrepreneurs. And then I want our people to be rewarded when we are successful, right? And the business wins. And so
Yeah.
for us, back to that incentives, 50% of our profits go to our employees.
Oh, wow.
And that was a decision
Yeah.
that I made, at the outset, was like, I really want something that a lot of people can be successful. And I don't want to just give money. I want our people to be really sound, savvy entrepreneurs so they can, really maximize the value of the business and also their opportunity for their families and their households.
And was that an initiative you started day one, or was that something that you had to roll out later on? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, that was something from the outset. So like back to like operating with intentionality, that was one of the things that I wanted to do is I like, I think the simpler you can make it, the better it can be. And so I just wanted happy employees. And if my people are really happy, customers are going to be happy. If we're operating with some degree of, efficiency, things are going to work out well. And so, it's really kind of like two main things. I want to be maniacal about my costs and keep my costs as low as possible.
Yeah.
I want to deliver an amazing experience. So I want to like over index on a customer experience. And I want to make sure my people are really well taken care of and are operating as entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to kind of operate in those three areas and then just get best in class people.
If you have an option as a best in class plumber, right? And I'm going to go to ABC Plumbing, or I'm going to go to Mother Modern Plumbing, and one of them offers me $32 an hour and one of them offers me $32 an hour, but I get to participate in a profit sharing plan based on X, Y, or Z. 100 out of 100 times, even if I'm getting paid hourly less, there's a chance I'm going to the profit sharing location. Because I know one of the big gripes, I mean, I'm really close to my technicians in person, but just in this industry, one of the big gripes is that there's a lot of people who feel like they're making money for someone else, but that gives them a little piece where they're feeling like they're making money for themselves. And so it kind of especially with the very, very talented individuals, gives them that sensation or that feeling of entrepreneurship, which I think a lot of them seek. So that's amazing. And it, just out of curiosity, this is for me personally, trying to figure my recruiting situation out. Is there like an application or some kind of how does that function? Like, what's the operational functionality of that? Like, is Gusto have some kind of button you click which then allows you to pay out this? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so a lot of my ideas have been shamelessly stolen. And so there's this really neat company in the Pacific Northwest called Les Schwab. And it is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
Yeah.
he built it's like a tire company. Yeah. And it just became a behemoth. It's a blue collar, industry with a similar philosophy. And so for us, we're kind of taking an approach. Our thesis, if you will, is like, at Chick-fil-A, they go, are you the right guy or the right gal? If so, we're going to split profits 50-50. You don't need to put up the 2 or 3 million like you do at McDonald's. And so, similarly, a lot of times plumbers or other trades, they get to some licensing level and they're like, oh, I'm going to be the proverbial man or
Exactly.
woman, and then I'm just going to go run it. But they don't know how to run a business, and so they struggle. They work longer and make less, and then they make foolish decisions and cash flow, all those things that end up happening. And so for us, we go, well, how can we just have it where they can we can teach them how to be great, and then they can go run their own, and it'll be a mother company. It's not a franchise per se, but it's their location, their territory, and they're going to get a large portion of the profits for their success. And so that is how we've done it. The other thing that's been helpful is this concept called Great Game of Business. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we do open book management every Friday.
Yep.
We do a forecasting exercise. Everyone sees the P&L. Everybody. And then our plumbers actually forecast for their truck the profitability, the revenue that they're going to do for that month. And so right now we're kind of in, budgeting season. So they're all forecasting for the next year. What is their truck going to contribute? And then based on their contribution is how we kind of divvy out on the bonuses, on the profit share.
I mean, that is amazing. Great people to steal from as well. And with the model that you're doing, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, I'm blown away. This is so cool, Dustin. I'm glad we got to meet in Dallas last time I was there. That's super neat. And so next steps, I kind of heard you hint that next steps sound like you're greenfielding, but with current employees that you're going to plan to open up new locations and them run locations at a higher profit sharing percentage. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. It takes time to make sure the people are ready. And we're still very nascent, in our journey here in just the DFW Metroplex. And so, but yes, eventually, whenever we've got the right guy or gal who's, ambitious and also, we feel they're competent and ready, we will open up another location. But that I do not anticipate
Yeah,
that
no
being
worries. I'm
any
not
time in the near
pressuring. I
future.
know, the headaches that are involved in that. And so just to close this out, do you have any words of wisdom, anything for people that are in your spot a year and a half ago? They are coming out of their MBA, they are tired of their W-2, and they're looking for something to do something similar to what you've done. Any wise words of wisdom to give them?
Are you still missing calls after hours or losing leads while your team sleeps? That's why we work with Avoca AI, owned and operated's exclusive call center partner. They answer 24/7, sound like a real human, and plug straight into your CRM to book jobs, send quotes, and even revive old leads. There are plenty of AI call centers out there, but we trust Avoca because we've seen the results firsthand. More booked jobs, less wasted spend, and no more missed revenue. See it in action at the link below. Start winning more jobs today with Avoca.
I don't know how wise these are, but you just don't stop. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. But the rewards are worth it. And whether it's monetarily, the impact you can make on people's lives, who you become in the process, it's incredible, and as long as you keep moving forward, half of the name of the game is survival, and as long as you do that, eventually, you'll see kind of the compounding nature of things. And so that would probably be my biggest encouragement, would be don't stop. And then also, get really clear about what are your strengths and where you can play, to kind of go back a second, like, I fully immersed myself in this business. I got an apprenticeship. I'm out on calls with the guys. I'm learning every day. So this is not one of those where, you just kind of randomly come in, sprinkle some fairy dust, things just magically happen. It is all day, every day. For me, I only know how to do it one way, and that's working a lot of hours, and so those are sacrifices my family makes in the short term for the long term. But that would be it, and the other thing that has been great for me is, listening to, whether it's yourself or others, people who've kind of been there, done that, because that can help shorten the learning curve.
I'm learning from the been there, done that from you right now. So I love this. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. That this has just been awesome. I really appreciate the time. If somebody wants to reach out to you, figure out your circle of influence and find some locals, where do they reach out to you, Dustin?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, you can reach me. I am on X, just gotten started on there because I heard a lot of people were on X. And they can even email me, if they want. It's just my name, Dustin@callmother.com.
Awesome. And then Dustin Marx at LinkedIn and callmother.com. Plug it for today. I appreciate Dustin. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been an awesome episode and this is one of those episodes where I won't sleep tonight because I'm just thinking of all the ways that I can do things like you're doing right now and steal from the best. So I do appreciate it. If you like what you heard today, we are really, really trying to push on all of our podcast network. Subscribe and drop us a comment. Thank you much, guys, and we will see you next week.